How many people in the audience are actually meditators? I meant to do a show of hands at the beginning. Who in the audience are regular meditators? So we're sort of talking to the converted already, aren't we? And how many people have learnt meditation but have given up and don't practice regularly? Okay, smaller percentage. How many people have never learnt meditation before, any technique? Okay. And how many consider meditation to be a wasteful lot of waffle? Okay.
They're here.
It's very brave.
So, what about the mechanics of meditation, Suzanne? So you've spoken about that transcendence, and can you talk just a little bit more about what actually happens subjectively during meditation?
Yeah. Generally, subjectively, there's an experience when we close the eyes, then we'll have more alpha, we'll have more alertness. We shut down a lot of perception from the outside, so that helps somewhat. But then if the mind is on the surface layer, then that's about as far as it's going to go if we get caught up in thinking and meaning. But if the mind's able to transcend and settle down further and further and become quieter and quieter, then your brain becomes more integrated. Because when you reduce activity, you increase order. And so you get more conscious capacity of the brain involved in the inner experience. And the experience becomes more delightful, more refined, more gentle. And if you're transcending, then quieter and quieter and quieter. And so when the mind transcends thought altogether and experiences that unboundedness of our own inner quality, then sensory perception has been transcended, the mind has been transcended, the intellect, the ego, and we experience samadhi. And in that state of samadhi, the mind is completely involved in its own inner experience. It's the most silent state of our own awareness, where our conscious mind experiences consciousness. And this experience is like coming back home. It's like a child running to mother. It's so delightful and so appealing for the mind. So instead of trying to hold the mind on the surface on something and it wandering off to try and find something more enjoyable and you bring it back, when the mind actually transcends and experiences its own inner essential nature, that undecaying, unbounded totality of us that we've been in touch with since we were very young. It's that little voice that we've been talking to since we were 4, and the same voice that we were talking to when we were 14, and now that we're 54, we're still talking to it, but it hasn't changed, we have. It's that undecaying quality of us. And so when we transcend and experience that, it is an experience of integration in the brain and the mind settling down. And a result of that experience subjectively is often one of contentment and fulfillment and bliss, because it's so fulfilling for the mind. The mind doesn't want to be held in thought. Even a tiny little thought is like a boundary for your mind. It's only when you transcend all the boundaries, it's like the waves settling down and becoming the whole ocean again. And so the experience is very, very delightful. But if you're caught in thinking and you're trying to meditate and you're up on the surface layer and the attention is getting drawn out to thoughts and to noise and you're trying to push it out, it can be very, very uncomfortable, because it's going against the nature of your mind, which says, really, I just want to go in there.
I guess there are many reasons why people might come to learning meditation and starting a practice, but speaking to a lot of people who've begun meditation, I've sort of broken it down into 3 major categories. So the first category is the person who's just curious about it. And I guess that's how I was when I was in medical school as well. And a very good friend of mine unfortunately had an osteosarcoma, a very nasty bone cancer. And he told me about meditation, and I thought that was something interesting and I should learn a little bit about it. The second reason is obviously in times of need. So when people are going through difficult times, stressful times, and I guess that's what happened to Rob when you're listening to the Lou Reed. And the third broad category is when people have, out of their own inquiry and intellectual inquiry of life, have realised that it doesn't matter how much money you have, how fancy your car is, how powerful or famous you may be, at the end of all that, there's still got to be something more. And so often people, having reached that intellectual inquiry, come to an inner pursuit. So many, many reasons why people come to meditation. and it can be used for so many different things. So, for example, it can be used for improving excellence in sport. Tammy, of course, has experience in that with the Melbourne Football Club. We hope you're not teaching the Melbourne footballers too well, because I remember back in the days when Justin Madden and the Carlton Football Club started Transcendental Meditation. The Carlton football team were unstoppable, and we don't want that happening to Melbourne. So, Tammy, I'd just like to hear your story, the role of meditation in the corporate world, how you use it in the sporting world as well, and if you can share that with us, that'd be great.
Sure. I learned meditation in 1999, and I probably fell in that first group that you were talking about. Someone said, "Oh, I've heard about this thing, meditation, and why don't you go off and try it?" And it was at a time in my life where I probably didn't realize that I was really burnt out and tired, and mother 2 young kids, had moved countries, didn't have any family support, and I just really took to it straight away. So after this weekend, it was something that the shifts that I started experiencing straight away, I decided this is something that I became incredibly passionate about, and I knew because I was feeling so much calmer in myself. It was something I really wanted to pursue and to start learning more about. So I furthered my studies, which I never thought I'd go back and do, but I went and did a PhD and actually did my dissertation on meditation. So I think that probably for everyone in this room tells you how much I actually did fall in love with meditation itself. And just really wanting to pass on what I had learned, not only personally from my own practice, but also from what the research was showing us and telling us, and that is that meditation works, and it really is simple, and I don't believe that there's any right or wrong practice. I'm not one of those that thinks there's only one way you can meditate. I've never fallen into that line of thinking. I really believe it's whatever fits your schedule, what feels right to you, if it's a guided meditation, if it's transcendental, if it's silence, if it's an app, whatever works for you, however it's going to be convenient and you can use it in your own life, I think is the best way that you can start really experiencing meditation and its benefits, but also then seeing the changes that you can have within your own life. I think for me personally, my aha moment was when a neighbor said to me 3 months into meditating twice a day, "What are you doing? You're so different." And I said, "Nothing. I'm the same person." And she said, "No, you're really, really different." And then it dawned on me, and I went back to what the teacher had said that first weekend when I learned that it would be someone outside of you that told you the changes that they saw before you probably saw them yourself. And that was my big aha moment. And then I also thought I must have been maybe a mother yelling at my kids. And I thought, oh gosh, where'd this come from? So it was this really big shift. And from that I decided to teach, and I started teaching in 2003, and that worked into, I did work with the Sydney Swans originally, and had some great success with the players up there. And what we found in the sporting world is, and again, as Rob said, everyone's talking about the physical side. You're supposed to exercise, you're supposed to eat right, you're supposed to drink a lot of, drink water and get your right fluids, and you're supposed to also get enough rest. But what people weren't talking about is this mental side of your life, and that you really need to have a timeout, or as I say, just hit a reset button. It's a pause button. And it becomes incredibly powerful, not only to sporting individuals, but the work that I do with corporates as well, because we are working at a pace now that's more frenetic than we've ever done before, and we are all really on 24/7. And I had a really interesting conversation, which is appropriate for tonight, on the way here, and the taxi driver asked me why he should learn to meditate, because his fear is he's going to get Alzheimer's, so he doesn't want to ever stop thinking. And so I found that really interesting, and I said to him, I'd like to give you an analogy. And so I said, if you were going to go to a prospective job interview, and your prospective boss, you're being interviewed, says to you, this is your job description, and I want you to work 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You have no opportunity to quit. And there's no holidays. I always say, who would take that job? And everyone says, no one. No one's going to take that job. But that's what our mind's doing for us every single day. And we just have to recognize the importance, as Rob's saying, we have to hit this pause button, and we have to actually give it a reprieve so that you can experience the benefits that Suzanne and Johnny will talk about as well, or Suzanne has, in that you start getting those moments of clarity and your energy levels increase, your sleeping patterns improve, your focus becomes greater. So there's so many benefits from the practice. And with corporates, what I try to, giving an example of how it works with the corporates is once they start practicing is them getting to a stage where they can become aware that they're stressed, and that maybe before I make this important phone call, I can sit quietly for 5 minutes and center myself, be it through breath or whatever technique you want to use, so then you can actually, when you do make that phone call that might be incredibly important for you that day, that it comes out from a place of being centered and not stressed. And with athletes, they're doing so much on every level. Physically, as you can imagine, they're training incredibly hard every day. They've got dietitians, they've got strength and conditioning coaches, they've got their mentors, they're watching videos and the rest of it. But the thing that you're seeing across the board, you've got the US Olympic team working with meditation, the Russian team working with meditation, you've got a lot of professional NFL teams, the Seattle Seahawks. I don't know if there's any football fans in this room, but they won the Super Bowl a year ago, and that team had introduced meditation. You've got NBA teams doing it. So what's this link? And the link is it's going to be about what's above the shoulders. That's this next step for sporting clubs, and that's what we're seeing worldwide, is how can they gain, when you're looking at things that are a split-second decision on the field, if you've got that clarity and you've got this and the ability to be centered and focused, it's amazing the decision-making that might transpire on the field from coming from a space of stillness, how that might translate to a good, or to execute a good kick or a good hand pass, or you've done the right thing and you followed team rules more effectively. Is that making sense?
Absolutely, Tammy. I've spoken to a few people, regarding sports, and people who are in business as well, who actually have a worry that if they start to meditate, they might lose their edge. They become so peaceful and still that they can't actually mobilise anything to do anything. Any comments about that?
I guess the perfect example is when you're working with a sporting team, and it is, when they get out there and the siren goes, that they're on, and it is, to a certain extent, it's like it is a battle out there, and it's a physical game, but getting to that heightened state of awareness and being highly alert, actually what happens is they become almost triggered subconsciously, if that makes, just like they're ready to go. They're there, they're focused, and they're ready to perform. So you don't lose your edge. If anything, you gain an edge. You're actually, your mind is in such a state of heightened awareness that you are ready to go, and you have an awareness, even from the peripheral, you've got a greater expanded awareness to help you with all aspects of the game.
And in fact, when you see the best sportsmen, you get a feeling that they've got a sixth sense about them. You see Chris Judd, and he seems to have eyes in the back of his head, and it's almost like he's in meditation when he plays. So we touched on different kinds of meditations, and Tammy was saying it doesn't matter what you're doing, whether it's a mantra or a breath or any other kind of meditation. I'd like Johnny just to go into some of the different kinds of meditation techniques, similarities and differences, whether some may be more suitable for some people than others, and whether there are sort of different purposes to the different kinds of meditation. Yeah. Sorry, that's a bit of about 20 questions in that one, Johnny. But
it's a subject that we could spend, 6 months on. It's, the title of tonight's talk, the theme is India's Gift to the West. We're talking about meditation, and this art and science has been cultivated for, some would argue, over 10,000 years, and for us to even come close to the surface, let alone scratch it, is very difficult to do in a 2-hour forum. So the subject of understanding the different techniques, the effect that they elicit in the mind, and the purpose of them is it's such a fascinating and very rich subject, of which I'm probably only going to sort of be able to touch on very, very lightly. So I'll attempt to do it right now. So meditation emerged from a culture that held the idea of self-realization as the pinnacle experience for the human being. And self-realization is to be able to have the direct experience of the source of who I am, unmitigated by fear or self-doubt. To be able to have the free-flowing experience of life where every moment improves upon itself as a continual flow in every single moment, where it's not intermittently broken up by confusion of the intellect about what's going on, is able to just sustain this beautiful, elegant flow from one moment to the next. This is where it derived from, and this was the purpose of it. And the understanding is from the texts and the stories that come from the East, that there were these individuals, and many, many of them, countless amounts, that experienced the extraordinary pinnacle state of consciousness, which is known as enlightenment, nirvana, unity consciousness. There are so many different names for it, where they have the full realization of the mind's potential as their direct experience. They experience the fullness of their potential as a reality. And, you read some of these texts and what they're experiencing, what they're able to describe as the reality of nature is so profound when you look into it. So we're talking about it in this context tonight because, that's the gift that we've received. But like most things that the West do, when we receive things from other cultures, we tend to sort of alter them or bastardize them for our own use, our own purposes. And, meditation is no exception. Although we've had great masters introduce meditation into the West, we're always repurposing things to suit us and what we need. And the way that we're responding to meditation at the moment is quite reactive. And the take-up of meditation is really becoming quite popular because we're stressed out of our eyeballs, and the proposition is that if we practice this thing, we'll experience some sort of alleviation of those symptoms. And it's true. It's so true that it's sparked the interest of all the biggest universities around the world to invest lots of money into further investigating the benefit and the value of this practice. And the papers that are being published are, delivering us very compelling data right across the board, from increased brain function to transforming our, supposed predisposed genetic state. It's changing our DNA, telomere. The list goes on and on and on and on in terms of what meditation can do.